Yeah, actually born and raised here in District 5. The picture of me that's behind you is me in front of the rocks I used to play on at Pioneer Park. So one of my earliest memories was riding my bike around that park. I would put up signs that said "Do not litter." So it's funny, 40 some years later, I'm here fighting to clean up the streets. So
So
very
what?
cool.
So you opened this door. So I'm going to ask you. So where did you get that? I mean, obviously you're part of the community, right? I mean, if you have multiple generations of the community, by the time you came around, there was just a lot of that just was organically or inherently part of your inheritance, if you will, right? But where did that active component or engaging in the community or putting out those signs come from? Is that sort of something like by example or?
It's really who I am, part of who I am. If something is if I'm not okay with something, I'm very solution oriented. I'm very action based. So I want to do
Get up and
something.
do something about it, kind of.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, um, yeah, that's how my community engagement started too. I was feeling restless about the outcome of an election. And I thought I can't sit around and be this restless for 4 years. So I started volunteering and just doing what I could in my own neighborhood and here in Anaheim.
For people who don't know, because how long has Anaheim had district elections?
This will be, oh gosh, the fourth,
Yeah,
the third district, third district election.
you guys are the ones that I would say have been at it probably some of the longest in Orange County, because we're down here in San Clemente and it's like our first time. And there's other places, but yeah, you've been through at least two cycles that I know of, maybe even more. And I can't seem to put my finger on, but I seem to remember like when that changed.
Mhm.
So for people who don't know what District 5 is, I swear to God, when we talk about these districts, every time I say the word district, I think Hunger Games, right? It's
Me
like,
too.
right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so, so candidate from District 5. So for people who don't know what District 5 is, can you kind of give us a little bit of idea what the boundaries of that is?
Yeah. So we're East Anaheim along the river, which
Okay.
is very special to me. Our city was founded for that reason, its proximity to the river. So it includes Angel Stadium, Honda Center, what will be OC Vibe,
Yeah.
Arctic Transportation Center, and then almost about up to where Camelot is.
And for
And
people
then,
who don't know what Camelot is,
sorry, the 91 and Kramer area,
right.
and then over to State College.
Yeah. So that's exciting because there's a lot of stuff that's sort of traditionally been there, but then
Mhm.
there's a lot of new stuff coming up. There's new developments coming up, like you mentioned, the OC Vibe. That's a big deal. And then the whole impact also during the Olympics. So there's going to be some activities that are going to be happening at the Honda Center, for example, right? And probably,
Yeah.
I don't know if the Angel Stadium is involved, but I would assume that, there's going to be some activities that are Olympic related. Um, and Anaheim is an interesting town. And again, most people probably don't realize that it goes all the way to there. Like they probably know the Angels of Anaheim. They probably don't realize that it actually goes over to the other side of the freeway as well, and that far up. So East Anaheim, and what are some of the things that you said you got engaged with stuff like you saw some things you were concerned about things? What are some of the things that you were concerned about that got you engaged into this?
I know our city does a wonderful job at serving youth. I have a son here, he's in second grade, but I do see a lot of opportunity for elevating our services to seniors and older adults. So I work in that space professionally, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Well,
But
yeah, I think I kind of like was leading you down this path because I think people should know that about you. So when you say professionally working in that field, what are you talking about?
well, backing up a little bit, I was a
Yeah.
caregiver for my grandparents for about 5 years.
Uh-huh.
So they were 90 years old. My grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. My grandfather was mentally sharp, but physically
Mhm.
needed some help. So as a caregiver and went back to school, finished up a degree and started interning at Alzheimer's Orange County.
Yeah.
And over 10 years later, I serve as Associate Director of Community Outreach and Advocacy there.
So what's
So,
interesting, it's interesting for, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but when we first started the RAAD Life, I had just turned 50, and Paul, who is a bona fide baby boomer, basically made the mistake of saying, "Hey, would you like to do a baby boomer show?" And I said, "Well, I'm not a baby boomer." And he goes, "It's okay. We'll call you a baby boomer wannabe, and we'll just have you do the show." And we were talking, and then there, and you and I are probably, 1 or 2 degrees of separation from a lot of people that are involved in sort of that guarding and gatekeeping for the senior communities in Orange County. Um, whether it's Council on Aging, whether it's Alzheimer's OC, whether, it's like people that were working with, just on like end of life or palliative care or whatever. So we did a lot of that. And that was kind of our original incentive, was to try to have these conversations about stuff that was difficult to talk about. And I had kind of a personal, honestly, I was trying to like almost like game the system for myself, because my parents were older. And I'm thinking, oh, if I talk to all these people, then I'll be kind of ready, for when it comes time for me to do it. And in fact, my mom, my parents both have passed, but my mom went pretty quick. Once she took it she slid down right around COVID. She had stage 4 lung cancer, and then she kind of like just took a turn, and she went really quick. And then my dad, for 2 years, we basically provided in-home care for him 24/7 for he had Parkinson's and dementia. And I don't think people realize what is involved. We talk about first responders and things like that, and we talk about it from a medical or a fire or a thing. But we have a population in Orange County that is, the whole county is, I think correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, but I think it's like a projection of something like 25% by 2030 or something that are 65 or older, and you have early onset, specifically to Alzheimer's. And it's not necessarily only an old person's disease. It could be like a middle-aged person's disease, or even like it could be an early onset. And the infrastructure, I don't know. It's like you have all these organizations that are very, very well intentioned, and they do their best, but the infrastructure is not in place. We are way behind the 8 ball on that one, and I'm not even touching on the financial viability of it for most people. Like, it's not a cheap endeavor for people to care for their, for their seniors, or most, a lot of women's, which would tend to be the primary caregivers, are maybe in a sandwich generation situation, like you were talking about. But the thing I also find very fascinating is, just like in your case, your entry into that space was from a personal experience thing, right? And that seems to be repetitive, I think, for a lot of people that just sort of gravitate towards serving that community, which is a very vulnerable community. So where is the, and I'm not picking on Anaheim in any shape or form, but where is the missing piece? Where's the lack of services, or how do you see that improving?
I am excited because it is currently improving. So, even just, I think is 18 months ago, we only had like 1.5 full-time people at the serving seniors in the city of Anaheim. There was other staff, but I mean,
And what's the population of the city of Anaheim?
Over 350,000 people.
And in your district, how many people in your district?
Around 45,000 people.
Yeah, and that's a district that you could almost, just mostly district. So that's a lot of people. And you had how many people in the city of Anaheim?
Over 350.
No, how many people were focused on the senior?
One full-time and one part-time.
Am I missing something here?
There was other staff, great staff, would help, from I think from the department. But anyhow, point being, we're well
Point being
staffed.
is we need more people focused on this issue.
And we're going in the right direction. We do have a lot more staff serving seniors. They're focused on how we can serve best who need it most. So,
how are the services? I mean, I'm assuming there's Meals on Wheels services in there. There's some, I'm sure there's a senior center, or even more than one, right? What is sort of the, like, for somebody who's a senior in Anaheim, right? Because I'm familiar more with like this, what used to be South County and then became Agewell down here, and some of the stuff in Irvine. But just educate me here. Like, if you are a senior in Anaheim, is that, I mean, I'm assuming it's a multi-generational community, so you've got a good amount of people that fit in that age bracket, right?
Yeah, Anaheim has the highest number of seniors in Orange County. We're the biggest city in Orange County, but we also, if I may say, we do not have a standalone senior center.
You do not.
No,
So where do you have multiple like
we have
locations?
community centers
Yeah,
that serve
that
seniors.
double up as seniors.
Yeah, and our downtown community center has a really nice section and for seniors specifically. Um, but I know that there's opportunity to have a standalone senior center
Now,
that
you've been doing this for what, 10 years as far as
working for
Alzheimer's?
Alzheimer's OC
Yeah.
for 10 years and then caregiver for 5 years before that.
Okay. So you've been on the end of it where you've looked for services, you've looked for support, you've tried to bring that into your family, to your grandparents. And then you've also basically now have the vantage point of looking at it from a larger perspective, being involved in it with Alzheimer's OC because of your role, right? So I'm curious because I've said this, but I mean, I'm not in the profession, right? But my feeling is that not only are the services for seniors in terms of acute or life supporting or, but you also have a change of profile in what is considered a senior or a person that would basically be looking for those services from the city, right? And so the nature of the profile change would also, I would think, constitute a need for us to reevaluate what it is that we're providing. Do you find that to be true?
Absolutely. And we are, there's actually an active older adult committee that has been working really hard the past less than a year, but to work more cohesively with community partners so we can serve seniors best. So again, I think we're going in the right direction.
Well, and
But
and specifically, Kristen, what I'm saying, and especially that, you're running for a seat at City Council. This is not a new thing. There are standards by the American Institute of Architects. There's standards by the AARP for things that are that what they refer to as livable communities, and that crosses into not just where it's universally designed, equal accessibility for people, but it also encroaches into things like walkability, transportation, things of that nature, because there's also that's part of the infrastructure that's not available. Like, I remember when I volunteered for 1 year of AmeriCorps at Cal State Fullerton under what used to be the We Care program, and a common friend of ours was involved in that at Cal State Fullerton, and our whole purpose was trying to develop transportation for people so that it wasn't just the available transportation to take them to the doctor for a medical visit or something like that, or the hospital, but actually what we would refer to you and I would refer to as probably life enhancing services, like for purposes of life enhancement versus just life sustaining, right? And that was a long time ago, before Uber. And it was very difficult to do that because we couldn't get the insurance companies to actually carry the waiver or the carrier, in addition to have volunteer drivers do this. So yes, we have Uber, yes, we have Lyft, yes, we have stuff like that, but we also have the financial reality of seniors. So like, I keep trying to bring this conversation into discussion, or even the types of housing availability for seniors, so that they're maybe scaling down, but they're not giving up the quality of life that they're used to or the familiar surroundings that they're in. Because if they are at risk of doing that, they're not going to release their larger home that they are now living in, that they're using as a reverse mortgage kind of safety net in case they need it, right? Because medical costs. So it's not just this sort of side tangent thing. It's a very integrated part that has a ripple effect in a lot of things that services that cities do. So do you feel that conversation is starting to register and resonate, or is it something that's still kind of not looked at as a necessity, I guess is what the question is.
I do think we're finally starting to look at that and have these conversations. You and I could have or have been probably having these conversations for the past 10
For a
years.
long time, even if not longer.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, because
yeah.
we've been seeing it. Like it's not new revelation, but it's like a lot of things that unfortunately are not dealt with proactively, and when it's in a crisis situation, then now it's the case, and it costs more. It's it's more of a rush. You don't basically build a sustainable model. Usually you're trying to do stopgap measures, right? And now you have this compounded by the affordability factor, because cost of living being expensive, property costs being expensive. So how does this factor into your thinking as you're running for a city council seat? Like, is this part of what you're thinking? Are there other things that are more critical right now that are on the radar?
Well, I think the issues of aging touch the most important issues to everyone, safety, affordability, even jobs. I think we take for granted that seniors, everyone wants to be retired. And I've been talking to a lot of people who have left the workforce that very much would like to get back in there, but they get written off because of their age. We live in a very ageist community or society here
We
in the
do.
United States.
We do. We do. But this is the other the kind of the interesting thing too, right? You see, today's senior is not their grandfather's senior, shall we say, right? It's to quote sort of an old automobile ad, but it's if you're supposed to retire at 65, right? The likelihood is that you're looking at, let's assuming some kind of good health, right? You're looking at probably 20 plus years of engagement. You still got about a third, quote unquote, of simple math of your life that you can't play enough golf. You cannot, right? So, and I've had this conversation when we had the chancellor of the community colleges, South County Community Colleges on, and I was talking to them about, like, you got this captive audience that is looking to maybe reposition and pivot or engage or continue to work, but maybe in a different capacity. Maybe it's a passion pursuit versus an economic pursuit. It may be one where they're looking to just kind of like start a business, for example, or whatever, right? And so we live in a society that I think still to a certain extent doesn't see the value of that. And in many cases, businesses, especially when it's cost of salaries, the old adage of I'll get rid of a person that's senior that I'm paying too much for because I can afford two other people, right? Yeah, well, the irony is when it comes to AI, I've been saying this to Paul the last couple of months. When it comes to AI, the way it is right now, you need that seasoned senior, mature adult, if you will, because they have the experience that basically guides the AI. Mm-hmm. And then they also have the experience to quality control the output of the AI that you may not get the benefit of by basically, having them kind of sunset to the side, right? And so again, I'm hoping that with the fact that aging is not the side thing that happens to a smaller part of the population, that it's happening to more people in Orange County, that we realize that we need a different take on it.
Yeah, and I'm here to do just that, use my platform to do whatever I can to just bring seniors to light and, let's get out, let's get active, let's get thrive together instead of just existing or,
So let's talk about the other side of the equation. Okay. Mm-hmm. What about affordability? What about people that, like you, for example, are born and raised in these communities in Anaheim, and then basically look to start their life, start their families, whatever it is. They may want to start a family, they may not want to start a family. That's the other thing that's very different for today's youth. Like, do we build single family homes because that's what we've done for the last 20 years? Some people may don't want the burden of that. You know, they may want to have the knowledge of exactly how much the rent is every month, and not the hidden costs of home insurance that we don't even know where it's going to settle because insurance companies are pulling out of the state. You know, all of this stuff, it changes the whole dynamic of home ownership, right? Uh, how much is that also on your radar, kind of?
Very much so. I mean, we're decades behind on building, but we also need to preserve the character of our neighborhoods. So that's a delicate balance there. But increasing affordable housing is important, and how we do that, is what the big discussion is. One way is to make maybe it easier to build affordable housing, streamline processes, things of that nature. But housing and transportation are two paramount issues today, and will be even more so as the population ages.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about Anaheim is it's a big enough both economic engine, big enough footprint, and it has a mixture of thought. You know, you've got some sort of more traditional thinking, and then there's some of this more, we need to be innovative thinking. And part of it is pushed honestly because you have to continue to compete as an innovative center, like whether it's from the entertainment side or the sports side or just the community side. And you were saying that it's kind of making sure that we provide that for the younger generation, right? I think part of it is also people like you're kind of a perfect example. Like if you can't afford to stay in the town that you were born and raised in, the community loses that value too, because you bring to the table sort of a connection, a rooted connection in the community that is by nature of your just multi-generational nature, right? You know where that thing is, sort of the background on some stuff. And it could be a detriment if you're kind of stuck in a way, but if you're also forward thinking and can find that balance, to your point, between sort of the appropriateness and sensitivity, but also the forward proactive thinking, that's a kind of a good sweet spot, which not only is just kind of an esoteric thing in my mind, like, oh, well, that's nice to do. I think it's also smart, both business, both in terms of appeal and drawing people in, whether it's in terms of visitors or actually people that are looking at the community now and going, okay, I can see myself in here, right? But how do we break through some of the sort of institutionalized thinking about things?
Oh, that's a big
What
question.
I'm talking about, because that's really what it comes down to, is right. There's sort of human beings are hesitant to change.
Yeah, and nobody likes change, but that's the only thing that is constant, right? I think information is very important and paramount. And as we're making changes, we communicate those changes and the why and the how, and connecting with our community, being accessible is important to me. So, having community forums. What I really liked about OC Vibe, that project as a resident, is that I felt like I knew what was going on before a shovel hit the ground.
Right.
There was a lot of information given. And so I appreciated that. And I would like to see more of that going forward.
Yeah, and I think there's been, I know some people that have been on city council. Dr. Jose Moreno actually used to pride himself on being the guy who has been on this show the most, multiple times. I've been at the city council in Anaheim myself in my role as chairman of the Arab American Civic Council, where basically it was like, okay, can we get that little Arabia district sign off the freeway? And it took us 20 years to get that done, right? And part of it was just resistance, and for whatever, I don't even want to get into it because it's kind of like archaic thinking in some parts. But at the same time, you have some new leadership, both at the mayor level, relatively new leadership with Ashley, and who's been on the show too, and also Sergio Ramirez, who's on the economic development. So it's an interesting time, and I actually used to be vice president of a pro development soccer team called Anaheim legacy. And we actually met with former mayor, I'm blanking on his name now. He's going to kill me. But Tom Tate, I think.
Take
And
Mayor Tate.
we met with him, and we met with the most recent mayor before Ashley. It's because we were trying to basically bring in that youth sport element, and we were looking actually for a field in Anaheim. As it was, we were basically training in a field in Lake Forest for an Anaheim legacy. But it's an interesting town. It sort of has its own characteristics, to be honest with you. How's it been? How has it been running in a district that you were basically born and raised in? Given the dynamics of what's going on right now, and also with the fact that you're basically bringing this sort of message that's blending both kind of like the heritage and the history and the connection with the community, but also this, hey, we got these incoming challenges, whether it's an aging population or it's affordability thing, do we start calling it, workforce housing or proximity housing instead of just calling it affordable housing, everybody showing up with a pitchfork and a torch at the city council and saying, not in my backyard. Like, how has it been? Because I'm assuming you've been knocking on doors, right?
Deep breaths. Yeah. Yeah, I actually, excuse me being so casual, but I just came in from canvassing and I'm going to go back out canvassing.
Right.
So it's been overall really good. It's been nice to connect with the community. And, I think I know what we need, but to hear from residents what's important to them.
So what is important to them? What have you found?
Public safety is paramount, and that means something different to everybody.
Mhm.
But, feeling safe where we live, where we work, where we shop, where we play, where we send our kids to school, all falls under public safety.
What do you think? What do you think are some of the reasons behind people feeling not safe, specifically in that area?
I think our streets physically are not as clean as they used to be.
Okay.
Homelessness is a crisis. And I think there's a fear element there. We do see a rise in crime. We do have more break-ins than we did maybe 15 years ago, or at least it feels like that. Maybe we're
Right.
talking about it more.
Right.
But we're again going in a good direction. I think the future is very bright for Anaheim. I think, I think public safety involves everyone getting together, multi-departments getting together, the police first and foremost, but also we need residents to work and report things and to have connection amongst each other for that safety.
Anaheim is a big city. I mean, it's a large city. It's a large footprint city. Do you feel that the level of engagement in the community is high, or is it just kind of like it's so large that it's difficult for people to get engaged?
Residents or
no residents. No, but that's a good point. It's not, because you also have a lot of people that have vested interests. There's a lot of stakeholders that are more maybe on the company side, or the large entertainment corporations and things of that nature, right? And whether it's the Angels or Disney or multitudes of people, like we may even mention the Packing House, right? So what do you feel that the residents of Anaheim, because I live in a kind of in a different universe down in San Clemente. Okay, when we have something going on, we have standing room only outside the city council chambers, even, because everybody is involved. It's like an extended family that is gonna show up, for anything and everything. Is it? I don't know. How is it in Anaheim? Is it heavily engaging? Is it issue specific?
I think very issue specific. I think people want to be more engaged.
Okay.
A common thing that I hear is we want more information. We want to know what's going on. There's always stuff going on here in Anaheim. Fun,
Right.
Great, free stuff.
Right.
But people don't know how to find out about it or don't know where to look. So centralizing a calendar or communicating that clearly is important.
You know, it's
And
funny. It's funny, Kristen. That's sort of the same thing with the senior side of things, right? Most people, they kind of don't think they need to know, and then when they need to know, they don't know where to go to get the information, and they want to be involved and active. They don't know who to go to, what information they have available, but even though it's there, but it's kind of interesting. I kind of just ran parallels in my head there for a minute. What are some of the other things that people have told you other than safety?
uh,
Transportation, we touched on a little bit.
yeah, we did just, I would
And
say,
I'm assuming when you say transportation, like alternative transportation or public transportation or things of that nature, or what?
yeah, connectivity, knowing where to go, how to access buses, the safety at bus stops,
Yeah,
they could be more well lit
right.
or cleaned up, physical trash on the street. I hear about that. So I think in general, people want to have more programming in our public spaces. They want to feel safe in our public spaces. One thing that I've been talking about a lot with people is our libraries. We
Okay.
have wonderful libraries, and talking about information, our libraries can be that hub for information and
Yeah,
across the ages,
well, especially with the changing nature of libraries, right? I mean, it's a lot more online, a lot more electronic. There's basically, in many cases, libraries are, like facilities or spaces that are gra- almost grandfathered into the system, right, as far as a part of the infrastructure. But the real estate that is needed to perform the functions of a library today are maybe less square footage than it was before. So they could actually act in another capacity or provide support capacity, especially like when you're saying you have community centers, but you don't necessarily have senior centers. Although I will tell you, I don't know how long it will be before nobody is going to go to a senior center, but they'll go to a wellness center or they'll go to some sort of different label. Words mean things. I mean, if you told me affordable housing, and I was sort of your typical kind of voter who's concerned, not really engaged, but is just as aware now there's something about affordable housing or group housing or whatever, I'm going to basically say, hell no, not in my backyard. But if
Mhm.
you label it proximity housing or you label it workforce housing or you somehow make the connections for me that it is about keeping the youth of the community that are born and raised there, providing them with the ability to basically have a stepping stone kind of start for their life as adults, and that's their kids, that's their grandkids, the conversation changes its nature. It is no longer about who's the them that are going to live in the affordable housing. um, it's interesting. Definitely, like you were saying before, it touches on a lot of things. Like
Mhm.
it's not a neat little box that you can put aside. And I'm thinking your community outreach position probably at Alzheimer's has given you the ability to communicate with people on things that are tough topics.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important to me. And I know we're running a lot out of time,
Close,
but
yeah,
mental health is something that's very important to me.
I can
Um,
imagine.
and just breaking down the stigmas around it. So when we're talking about difficult conversations, like homelessness, mental health, I think we need to have many voices around the table and be honest and get real. And I look forward to being a part of those conversations.
And I'm hoping to that specific topic that, especially coming off COVID, that we all have a different sensitivity and appreciation to the conversation about mental health. It's not a the guy has schizophrenia and he needs institutionalized help or something like that. Mental health has many layers. It could be anything from just change a career, stress related. You're a sandwich generation, caregiver that's trying to balance work as a second income bringing into the house, to basically kids going to school, high school, to parents that are aging. Like, it could be
Yeah. Our
un,
first responders.
yeah, first
I-
responders that are basically caring for all these people dealing with. I mean, I don't know how caregivers do it, to be honest with you, Kristen. Honestly, like I saw caregivers that took care of my dad, and you can't avoid but build an emotional connection. Like it's a vulnerable population, right? So you do that. But then as draining as it is on a family member to see somebody, for in the case of Alzheimer's, basically just, fade away in front of you, right? For a caregiver that does that, that then basically goes and does it again and does it again, and to go through that anticipatory loss and then the grief, and then basically put yourself back into it. I mean, you want to talk about people that, caregivers that need care themselves, right? And I think it is becoming more and more important that people that represent the interests of people in communities have sensitivity to some of that stuff. That it's a complex role,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Definitely. I'm here to get real, to be real, and to have those tough conversations and, to break down stigmas. Like I said, as one council member, I can't solve the mental health crisis that we're in, but if I can provide, that connection, build bridges to have more programming, and just talk about that more. I'm here
Well,
for
I
that.
think I think people sitting on city council in Anaheim too have an additional role that they can play in Orange County because of the nature of the community, the nature of the city, what it represents. It's sort of a ad hoc hub, if you will, or a center, just like kind of Irvine is in a way, right? Um, and I think there could be a leadership situation there where you lead an effort not only for the benefit of Anaheim but also the benefit of Orange County as a whole on some of these regional issues that everybody that we've had on faces, whether it's Laguna Hills that has 10,000 people, or districts in Irvine that have 80,000 people, or like, how has it been for you? Like, has the exercise of running been something that's been mostly positive? Is it something that just,
Uh,
I'm saying that because of the nature of the political environment that we're in. I mean, it's a pretty nasty environment out there.
oh yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal, but it's the hardest thing I've ever done. It's also been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. It's I've stretched farther beyond I thought I was capable of, and have pushed through some really challenging times. But my love for the city of Anaheim is bigger than any fear that I have. So um, I'm here. I'm here to serve, and I hope that I earn the support of residents here in District 5.
And how can people find more about you? And I know it's only 5 days or 4 days, whatever we have
Yeah,
left, but how can people help?
I appreciate that. They can visit my website, kristenforanaheim.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. And like I said, I'm here to be accessible and responsive to people. So if people have a question, a concern, they want to talk Anaheim, please reach out.
Yeah, this is a lady you guys need to know, regardless of the outcome of the elections, because at one point or the other, unless you are somehow, you're not rooted in something, or you have a family tree or something, whatever, you're gonna need to basically touch base with people like Kristen as you face your own challenges. And honestly, I think, some people say, well, we need the old guard, or we need the new guard for new blood, or we need the old guard for old stuff. It's not so much that. I think people need to understand that the role that we vote, literally, we're hiring you guys to basically do a job, right? I mean, but that's how we voters are, what we're doing. You need somebody that you basically understand can address not only the job that they know, but when they're faced with complexities and multi-layered issues and challenges, that they have sort of that muscle. And I think if anything, I mean, this is kind of an interesting way to litmus test something, right? If anybody's involved in the senior industry, let me tell you, they don't know what's coming at them on a daily basis. And then you guys basically step up and basically figure it out, or do the best to basically provide a solution that provides dignity, that provides, sustainable, maybe, that tries to relieve stress and fear on the family member. I mean, if you take that and you apply it to any issue that's facing a community, right? You want a person with that kind of DNA, if you will, to maybe be involved in the solution. So I really thank you for running. I appreciate your candidness about how it's been, because I would not expect it to be any different, honestly. And the fact that, your love for a community overshadows any fear or struggles or challenges you've been receiving or facing, that speaks volumes, honestly.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I hope that shows through. Yeah, it's been wild.
Well,
All
I
worth
sure
it.
hope so. I sure hope so. And thanks for being on, because again, just kind of to circle back around, the reason why we're doing these shows is because candidates don't get a chance to actually be themselves. Don't get a chance for the audience or the voters. It is a performance sport, man. The audience, the voters actually to get to know you. And so I appreciate you taking the time, especially with it being so close to election day. I know you are slammed. So thanks for taking the time. Good luck
Yeah.
with canvassing this afternoon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. And
Yeah.
I hope to talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sure we'll talk again, regardless of the outcome. But I wish you luck in the elections. And yeah, just it's nearly there. So yeah, 5 days, and then the work really starts.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Kristen. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And we're going to be back in about 10 minutes with another candidate spotlight. So, Paul, take us away, and I'll see you guys and everybody else in about 10 minutes.